With the chaos and the abuse of the rule of law and the destruction of the Department of Justice that is the hallmark of the Trump administration, we could literally do a Legal AF podcast every day. But we've saved up enough. And even going on to the air today with Karen, we had to make rapid response adjustments based on rulings that are coming out, mainly not in Donald Trump's favor, although with a little twist in Oregon we'll talk about. And Donald Trump is just, he has a tell, Karen. He has a tell. When he knows he's going to lose or he doesn't really care about, like, the indictment of James Comey, he automatically starts managing expectations. Oh, Comey's a bad cop, but he pulled a crooked Biden judge. So, what am I to do? Well, we're going to find out pretty rapidly, given the rocket docket of the Eastern District of Virginia. So we're going to update everybody on this fast-moving story about James Comey. No perp walk, everybody. There's a little bit of a spoiler alert. And I think that was a wise move by the Trump administration. And wait till you hear the reports from the people inside the room for the arraignment in front of Judge Nachmanoff of what Lindsey Halligan was doing, or better yet, what she was not doing. She was almost in a fetal position, Karen. The people in the room said she was rocking back and forth in her chair and nodding a lot, but didn't speak. And we'll talk about who did speak on behalf of the Eastern District of Virginia, a couple of carpetbagger prosecutors in from North Carolina. And then Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals don't have a great judge poll for that one. The three judges that got pulled on whether Judge Immergut made the right or wrong decision to protect our democracy and our rule of law to stop Donald Trump from federalizing the National Guard in Oregon and using them in a Portland that seems to be populated by regular law-abiding citizens mixed in with cartoon characters and frogs and chicken suits, but does not a rebellion or insurrection make. And we'll talk about Kristi Noem's cosplay of with her entourage of social media podcasters going to ICE for a prayer session and to survey the war-ravaged Portland until the camera panned down and sort of wrecked her whole narrative. But the Ninth Circuit has an oral argument tomorrow. It will be up on Legal AF YouTube Live for tomorrow. It's 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll talk about the judges and we'll talk about the briefing, and what is on the docket for the appeal and what is not. Then the Pam Bondi show came to town. Every couple of months, she has to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee. And in this one, I guess she thought it was going to be some sort of one and done experience. I'll just come in. I'll do a couple of counter punches, a couple of feints, a couple of jabs, kind of wrap it up, call the Democrats disgusting and challenge them rather than answer questions. And that really didn't go over well. And things blew up in her face that were supposed to be softballs. See, softballs are not, look at the face. That was her, leave that up for a second. That was her face for the majority in lieu of answering questions. That was her smarmy, squinty-eyed, why do I have to be here? For almost every question that she would. This is the same person who begged for the job, Karen, during her confirmation hearing. I will be independent. I will not be told what to do by Donald Trump. Well, that's not who showed up at the confirmation hearing. We had a couple of great clips, including the Epstein matter blowing up in her face in response to a softball set of questions by a MAGA senator, not even the Democrats. I want to cover that, Karen, with you. I want to cover the SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, is back in session, and the MAGA 6 are working overtime, two oral arguments already, and we can already see that the majority is going to be ruling for the pro-Trump positions in both. So we're off to a rocky start on the first day or two of the Supreme Court. We're showing those live as well, Karen, on Legal AF YouTube. Come on, Karen, come on in. Let's do this.
Hi, Popok. Great to see you. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
I can't wait to talk about these things with you. I can't believe what I'm seeing with my eyes these days. One
more turn of events, and that TV behind you is going to be tossed out onto whatever street you're on.
Broadway.
Broadway. Can't take it anymore. Comey, let's start with good news. We got the great good news for Comey. To remind everybody, in case they were sleeping like Rip Van Winkle lately, former FBI director, former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, James Comey, was indicted, we think, it's hard to tell from the indictment, for some sort of perjury involving, we're not quite sure who, about what, and when. These are all problems with an indictment, by the way. Problems that were pointed out by Pat Fitzgerald, the former U.S. attorney for Chicago. And for people that were in the room, they said, Karen, it looked like the tables were switched because you had the powerhouse team that knew what they were doing, quick on their feet and getting everything they wanted in James Comey, former U.S. attorney, and in his lawyer, Pat Fitzgerald, former U.S. attorney. And on the other side, you had, I told you we'd want to pay for this. You had Lindsey Halligan, who never said a word. According to reports, I'm not making this up. I'm not being mean more than I need to be. Rocking back and forth in her chair and doing some nodding. She better get used to. I think she's getting ready to get into the fetal position. She carted in. No one in the Eastern District of Virginia's office will prosecute this case, so they had to import two lawyers from North Carolina, one Mr. Lemons and one Mr. Garcia, who handled trying to get Judge Nachmanoff, a Biden appointee, to slow the case down. Because there's new reporting, and I want to talk to you about this, about these reports that are going to have to be turned over to the defense that say, don't prosecute this case, because the witnesses, like maybe Daniel Richman, the law professor at Columbia, will provide insurmountable hurdles to a conviction, all there in a leaked report. A lot of leaks coming out to make sure these things are preserved for the defense. Between that and the one we had 2 days ago, where John Durham, the special counsel, said there's no case to prosecute against Comey. If there was, I would have done it in 4 years and tens of millions of dollars of my investigation. All of that plays into the hands of Pat Fitzgerald and James Comey. It's a win for them today by a lot, not a little. What was your perspective as a former prosecutor about how this arraignment went down, the judge being selected, the performance of the prosecution, and all these leaks that are coming out about don't prosecute this case because there's no case?
Yeah, this was it was like watching a minor league team play the Yankees, right? It was just unbelievable to see the matchup in court and what's happening. I mean, so much so that even the order that the prosecution provided to the court about when the trial date is set had the wrong year on it. It already passed. It's supposed to happen January 5th, 2026, and it says January 5th, 2025. I mean, they're just rookie rushing this thing to court. But, look, just putting this into perspective, the Eastern District of Virginia is probably in the top 5 of the 90 judicial district or the 90 U.S. attorney's offices across the country. It is the cream of the crop. It's really highly, highly respected, partly because, look, they deal with matters of the utmost importance in this country, because just by jurisdiction, the Pentagon sits in the Eastern District of Virginia, CIA, lots of government offices, because it's right by Washington, D.C. It's one of the suburbs. So they are very highly respected. They've been around a long time. The fact that they couldn't get a single Eastern District of Virginia prosecutor to prosecute this case, that's issue number one, that they had to bring 2 guys up from North Carolina. That's telling right there, number one. Number two, you've got this judge who, yes, he's a Biden appointee, but look, judges are picked at random. This was a random appointee, just like sometimes Trump gets Trump judges. Sometimes he gets not judges that weren't appointed by Republicans, but also a very respected judge that has a great reputation. And the Eastern District of Virginia is known as the, quote, rocket docket. They are known for having cases go at lightning speed. And this case is no different. And the judge was skeptical of the prosecution prosecution's trying to slow this down, saying, oh, there's voluminous discovery. First of all, this is a 2-count indictment. There can't be that much discovery. And this case has been investigated for years, as you said, although we don't know exactly what the case is about because the indictment is so thin and threadbare that they don't even provide notice to the defense of who person 1 and person 3 are, or which exact statements are you talking about that you are claiming he lied about. So nobody really knows what this is about. People have surmised. They think it's about certain things. But if it is about the things that people think it is, not only is there evidence to the contrary, right? There's evidence showing that he's not guilty of that. For example, some people have surmised that one of the people, one of person 1 or person 3 is this guy, Daniel Richman, who's a law professor, and he is somebody that prosecutors have alleged that Comey authorized to leak information to the press. He told investigators that Comey instructed him not to engage with the media on at least 2 occasions, and unequivocally suggested and said Comey never authorized him to provide information to a reporter anonymously ahead of the 2016 election. So they have tons of information actually that says Comey didn't do this, that Comey is not guilty. They have prosecution memos that basically were provided to Lindsey Halligan saying all the reasons they can't even meet the low burden of probable cause, let alone beyond a reasonable doubt. And they are just in over their skis. I mean, they rushed to the grand jury. They rushed an indictment. The indictment really isn't proper. I think you're going to see a superseding indictment in this case that cures the issues in this indictment because it's pretty bad. And you've got Jim Comey and Pat Fitzgerald, as you said, 2 prior United States attorneys, not assistant United States attorneys, but they were the head of the offices. One of Southern District of New York, one in Chicago. These are legal powerhouses. These are heavy hitters. These are respected people, which is why Comey was appointed to be head of the FBI. And, you know, he's a very well-respected person. He also has a daughter and a son-in-law who, until this case, frankly.
They're on the defense team now.
Exactly. We're very respected federal prosecutors. They're going to be on the defense team. I mean, they don't have a shot. There's no case here. And on top of that, Comey's already signaled that they're going to make a claim for vindictive or malicious prosecution or selective prosecution. And for those of you who want to know the difference between selective prosecution and vindictive prosecution, they are slightly different. Selective prosecution is when the government enforces a neutral law in a discriminatory way. So prosecute some people, but not others for things like their political beliefs, right? So they're going to make that claim. And if they get over the hurdle there and make that claim, they're going to get all sorts of discovery from the government that really have nothing to do with the 2 charges. It has nothing to do with like, what did you say here and what did you say here? But we'll go into all the stuff that went into prosecuting him, all the emails, text messages, memos, all the statements that they have, just everything from all the lawyers, et cetera, who said, don't bring this case, or there's not enough to bring this case, or there is no case. So that's what selective prosecution is. Vindictive or malicious prosecution is slightly different. It's when the government retaliates against a defendant for exercising a protected legal right. So like if somebody appeals a conviction or refuses to accept a plea deal or files a motion, and because they did that, the government then brings more serious charges, the prosecution has to be motivated by a retaliation here. I think here you have that as well. So this is clearly selective and retaliatory. So I think they are going to bring both those motions. I think those are really hard cases to make, but frankly, if I ever saw a case that had that, I mean, Exhibit A is Trump's public tweet to Pam Bondi, where he said, Pam, basically, he fires the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who he appointed, Mr. Siebert, and then told Pam to bring this case. He installs Lindsey Halligan, who brings it the next day. So I think they have a great shot at both of those motions. And if they get over that hurdle, I don't see anybody finding Jim Comey guilty of these crimes.
And a great judge. You got Michael Neckmanoff, who we've talked about before, former federal public defender, which is where Joe Biden helped change the face of the judiciary. He put on a number of federal public defenders rather than just prosecutors to have a more well-balanced, because they come at it from different perspectives. Your long career as a prosecutor is amazing and developed a certain lens for you. I spent the exact same amount of time as a defense lawyer, primarily. And, now you're a defense lawyer as well, because you have the benefit of being a prosecutor. But when you have a guy like Agnifilo, who makes really good decisions, is really well respected, it's a compliment to hear Donald Trump call him a dirty. What makes him dirty? Because he got confirmed by the Senate and Joe Biden appointed him. That makes him dirty. And what makes Immergut, the Trump-appointed judge in Oregon, we're going to talk about next, what makes her an insurrectionist? And it's just this, and the American people, I'm just going to say it out loud, the American people are tired of it. The American people are tired of it. They're tired of his whining. They're tired of his unpatriotic approach. They're tired of his attack on the rule of law and attack on judges. And it's showing up in the polls. So I don't think this is helping him. And I think Agnifilo was like, well, nobody's waving. That's the other thing. Jim Comey's smart, as we know, as is Pat Fitzgerald. They're not waiving speedy trial because it puts the burden and the pressure on the prosecution to turn over everything within very short. I mean, we're going to trial in 3 months in a very short amount of time, like in the next 2-3 weeks. And I don't think they're right. You think Lindsey Halligan, when she showed up 10 days ago at the Eastern District of Virginia and couldn't find the washroom key, you think she figured out where the big pile of documents are that they have to turn over by law to the defense? Forget it. So that, again, advantage. Defense ready, usually it's prosecution ready. They're not ready, and that plays into the hands, strengthens the hands of James Comey as he works to file soon. It's coming soon. It may not be as soon as Alex Spiro, whatever his name is, filed the motion to dismiss on Mayor Adams right off the indictment, but like the day of. But it's coming soon to a federal judge near you. And everything that happened today or yesterday was to his advantage. And where did that perp walk go, Karen? Oh, you got Kash Patel. Oh, the simps over at MSNBC. Well, he wrote this in a social media post, whining and crying about James Comey. Where were your tears for who? Bannon? Bannon wasn't perp walked in the federal side. He wasn't on the state side. I don't even know what happened. On the federal side, he wasn't. I don't even know what you're talking about. Get your facts straight, as Pam Bondi liked to say throughout her performance yesterday. But all as we expected, everything really is lining up perfectly. All the planets are lining up perfectly for James Comey. He went first. This is the one they chose to go first. Not that any of them would have been any better. I think Letitia James, it would be just as tough, if not tougher, and Adam Schiff and maybe Lisa Cook. They're all represented by the same kind of lawyers. But it's just to start with James Comey, it's going to be a major setback for the Trump administration, and people can celebrate in the streets when James Comey's indictment is dismissed.
Yeah, no, this is atrocious. This is an atrocious abuse of prosecutorial power. And as a former prosecutor, I'm appalled that the Justice Department is being weaponized against people for political reasons. Justice is supposed to be blind. It's not supposed to be used against your enemies or your political opponents. This is appalling. And what really bothers me, in addition to the fact that Jim Comey's being prosecuted in this way, is just what this means for the rule of law, what this means for justice, what this means for the Justice Department. It's just really sad for this country. I think that especially federal prosecutors have always been above the fray. The Department of Justice has always been above the fray. You've always seen prosecutors, doesn't matter who the president is, they'll go after politicians who are corrupt in both parties, including in their own party. Justice has always been meted out that way, and this is the first time the Justice Department. I mean, when you look at the fact that they dismissed the case against Tom Homan, who the border czar, right, and Pam Bondi, who we're going to talk about next, won't even answer basic questions about that investigation and about that case. that was dismissed because of him, because of who he is. He works now for Donald Trump. He's a Trump loyalist. When he took $50,000 in bribe money, and they have it on tape. They dismissed Mayor Adams, the same exact thing, the mayor of New York City, right? They dismissed that case, political. He's like an ally of Trump for political reasons, and now going after his enemies. I mean, it's just really, really sad what's happening to
There's dozens of indictments that have been dismissed, or prosecutions that have been quashed or killed, that are all within the inner circle or just outside of it for Donald Trump. I just had the executive director for Justice Connection, which is the alumni group for the Department of Justice, and 280 plus people who have the best and the brightest of the Department of Justice at every level that have left since January. Do you know that there's, and she had a number, did you know there's 5,300 Department of Justice personnel that have been fired or have quit or been forced to resign since Donald Trump's new term? 5,300. And they haven't been replaced, of course, which is what we're watching with this. But she was on. We have a video. I think they're going to do a playlist with us regularly on Legal AF about the letter that they wrote demanding justice for the Department of Justice, and demanding and cataloging all the ways the Department of Justice has failed America under the leadership, is too strong of a word, under the auspices of Pam Bondi and the chief legal officer of America, Donald Trump. And just to hear her from an insider perspective, she served 5 presidents and 7 attorney generals as a senior attorney in the Department of Justice. She now heads this organization, and it's their third letter. They did a letter to oppose Emil Bovee as the Third Circuit Court of Appeals judge. They did a letter about the dismissal of the indictment against Mayor Adams, as you mentioned, in New York, and the decimation of the once proud Southern District of New York prosecutor's office that resulted. And now they step forward here. They also provide legal, like pro bono legal services for DOJ people who are targeted, and mental health counseling. I think both those things go hand in glove.
I wonder how many of those 5,300 were prosecutors, because I think there's about 10,000 prosecutors nationwide who work for the DOJ. And, there's many, many more employees of the DOJ. But I wonder how many of the 5,300 are prosecutors.
It's hard to tell. I mean, she gave me a number. The executive director gave me a number for the amount of people who signed the letter about Emil Bovee, and that was like in the 700 and 800s. But again, even here, the letter that they just wrote, which is posted on Legal AF Substack, they don't. There's a lot of like analysts and senior analysts and paralegals, but there is a fair amount of division heads. We've watched it.
Yeah.
Jay Bratt, who was one of the lead prosecutors for counterintelligence in the Mar-a-Lago prosecution against Donald Trump, is on that list, and all of that. And when we come back from our brief break that we need in order to stay on the air, we've got the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We know who the 3-judge panel is. We know there's a hearing tomorrow, and there's a brand new order as we came on the air. Breaking news about Donald Trump's attempts to federalize and mobilize the National Guard in Oregon and Portland. It's an interesting decision, new order that came out to kind of hold the ring while they make their decision. We'll talk about the 3 judges, the hearing, what the case is about and what the case is not about. When we come back, we'll talk about Pam Bondi with clips. We got receipts of her performance. That's a great picture before the Senate Judiciary Committee. And not just, we just won't show you the Democratic questions. Because we're equal opportunity, we're going to show you the questions she had to answer to Senator Kennedy, who's a MAGA Republican, that didn't go well for her either. And then we'll talk about the opening of the United States Supreme Court with a couple of new oral arguments that have just opened. So many ways to support what we do on Legal AF. I call it the Legal AF ecosystem. You've got the podcast, which is rocking, 5 years in the making. Karen, Ben, and me, Wednesday, Saturday, and all of that. On YouTube, you're here, but continue to watch us and send it to friends and help us stay at the top of the YouTube weekly rankings for this podcast. Then go over to the audio version and leave a 5-star review there and download that and listen to that, vice versa. So we stay up the top of the charts on Apple. It's all the hummingbird theory. It all keeps us. We don't know exactly what keeps us at the top of the charts, but we're asking, so we got to do it all. And then we've got the Legal AF Substack, well on its way to 1 million subscribers before the new year. 10 new videos a day. amazing interviews and contributors and newsmakers who come on a regular basis. Come over to Legal AF, the Substack. And again, no corporate parenting here, no paywall. This is how we keep this whole thing moving at this time of great pressure on independent commentary and journalism like ours. And then we've got the Substack. There it is. And what I love about Substack is the immediacy of it. I can do 2 lives a day. Today I did one with Adam Klasfeld, All Rise News, for 40 minutes. We got like 2,800 people together just talking about issues that were happening in real time in a way we can't do it on a podcast. We can't do it on YouTube, but we can do it on Legal AF Substack. And that's another way to support what we do with a paid membership on Legal AF Substack. And then we've got our, from the beginning almost, because of Jordy, we've got our pro-democracy, very supportive sponsors. We've vetted these things. If you've got a little bit of disposable income and you think these things are interesting to you, then we encourage you to try them out. And here's a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack and hydration sponsor. IQ Bar is the better for you plant protein-based snack made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. I've been using IQ Bar in my daily routine. I start my mornings with IQ Joe. For a jitter-free caffeine boost, I grab an IQ Bar like the mint chocolate chip to power through the afternoon. And I hydrate with IQ Mix after a tough workout. Their ultimate sampler pack is a perfect way to try it all. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. Everything is clean and smart, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, GMO-free, and free from artificial sweeteners. They're packed with ingredients like magnesium, lion's mane, and adaptogens to keep your brain and body performing at their best. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all 3. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the sampler pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text Legal AF to 64,000. Text Legal AF to 64,000. That's Legal AF to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply, and see terms for details. Are you sick of drinking your calories or waking up hungover? Having some drinks can be fun, but I'm glad I found an alternative that lets me feel great in the moment and the next morning. Out of Office Gummies from Sol. They give you that light social buzz without the slump or guilt that comes with extra drinks. No hangovers, no missed workouts, just good vibes. Sol is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Sol specializes in delicious hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood and help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies were designed to provide a mild, relaxing buzz, boost your mood, and enhance creativity and relaxation. The gummies come in 4 different strengths, so you can find the perfect dose for your vibe. Choose from a gentle microdose, perfect buzz, a noticeable high, or a fully lit experience. With wellness at the forefront, all of Sol's products are made from organically farmed, USA-grown hemp and are vegan, gluten-free, and low in sugar. And if you like their out-of-office gummies, you gotta try their new out-of-office beverage, a refreshing, alcohol-free alternative perfect for summer sipping. Bring on the good vibes and treat yourself to Sol today. Right now, Sol is offering my audience 30% off your entire order. Go to GetSol.com and use the code LegalAF. That's GetSol.com, promo code LegalAF for 30% off. Welcome back. And now we must return to war-ravaged Oregon and Portland, where people are apparently dropping their lattes over people dressed in chicken costumes and frog suits who are, I guess the frog represents Antifa. I don't know. In any event, against the backdrop of the Ninth Circuit setting oral argument about Judge Immergut's decision on last Saturday at 4:30, not to be confused with her decision the next Sunday at 10 p.m. There's only one temporary restraining order that is at the heart of the appeal, and there was a request for an administrative stay. We have our 3-judge panel. We have the oral argument. The issue that was up for administrative stay was, should the 3-judge panel, which is not a great, I'm going to just preface this, not a great panel. Judges Graber, Nelson, and Bade. 2 Trumpers and a Biden, and a Clinton, going back in the time. And against that, we're going to get into the procedure about tomorrow's oral argument and the briefing around it and the issues at stake. But you had Kristi Gnome and her infinite wisdom, I'm sure in consultation with her other half-baked half-wits like Pam Bondi and Donald Trump and Todd Blanche, decided, that's a great time to go to Portland, go check out the ICE detention center. And who better to escort the Secretary of Homeland Security than right-wing podcasters like Benny Johnson, who, side note, took money from Russia television and then started spouting Russian propaganda several years ago and was caught up in a scandal related to that. But now Benny Johnson's back. Everybody wants to be on his podcast on the right. And I guess she figured a little free media with them doing their little iPhone recording would be great, except when they went up to the roof to survey all that Kristi Gnome could see in downtown Portland. Remember, Donald Trump called it war ravaged. This was the justification for sending in the military and the federalization of the National Guard. Do we have the video of? Let's run the video of Kristi Gnome conquering Portland.
So trained. They will stay right on the outside of that.
I'm sorry. I'm glad Salty turned off my mic because I literally burst out laughing. She was probably fine until her social media podcaster decided to pan down and show, the upside down flag and a guy wearing a chicken suit. And this is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, that we are going to take over Portland with federalized troops. They should play that at the Ninth Circuit hearing. Then she went inside, Karen, and did a compelled forced prayer meeting. I'm like, what is going on? We're not this is the Turning Point memorial again. What is going on, and why is she doing that? Because that didn't help their case before they argue tomorrow at the Ninth Circuit. What was your take on all of it?
I mean, look, it's so bizarre to me. I'm from the West Coast originally. I was born and raised in Southern California. And my parents actually, when I went to law school, moved to Oregon. And so although I've never lived there, I've spent a fair amount of time in Oregon. I've gone to Portland many, many times. Beautiful, beautiful city. There is no way they can make a case with a straight face that it is war ravaged in any way, shape, or form. And Portland is a very special town. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful. It has a very free thinking culture. You've got people who are very kind of hippie-ish and hip and young, and just it's a beautiful place with amazing people. Yes, they have a little bit of a homeless problem like so many cities do, and drug problem, but to call it war ravaged is really there's nowhere you can say that place is remotely like that. I mean, if you just look at that video that was just shown, you've got 3 protesters and you've got cars commuting going to work. I mean, and that's exactly what Judge Immergitt said when she was making findings of fact, when she was looking at whether or not they can federalize the National Guard and deploy them in Oregon. She essentially said, look, I live here, I'm looking at the facts on the ground. They don't support what you're saying, and there's nothing in the record to support it. They're just saying things that just are belied by the facts. So it's just to see her there, to see Kristi Gnome there, and to see her bringing troops to sweet Portland, Oregon, which is, like I said, it's it's such a peaceful, there's lots of rainbows and people dressed up, and it's just a very free thinking place. It reminds me a little bit of the West Coast version of Vermont. It's a little like that, kind of a lot of hiking going on, a lot of outdoors stuff, but it is absolutely not what Trump is trying to say that it is. And I'm glad to see a Trump appointed judge, Judge Immergit, saying, sorry, you can't federalize troops and bring the military here. There's no reason for it. There's no need for it. And what you're saying, your justification for it, because there are laws, right, that say when you can do it. And it's for things like when there's an insurrection and that sort of thing. She's like, there's no facts in the record that support that.
Chicken suits.
Yeah, exactly. Chicken suits. Right. Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time in Portland. So I hear this and I'm like, this is nuts. This is bananas. This is like, it's like, think like college town, that's the vibe.
Portlandia, watch the TV show. Fred Armisen made a whole series, lasted 5 years. It's almost like a documentary of life in Portland.
Yeah, exactly.
Just watch it and think insurrection,
yeah, exactly.
military invasion. Are you effing kidding me?
It's just crazy.
So now we take this to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So Judge Immergut, who's great for this case. And earlier I was like, oh crap, Trump appointed. Then I go look at her record. Federal prosecutor, assistant U.S. attorney in California, Central District, LA. U.S. attorney for Portland. What's the name of the county that Portland's in?
Multnomah.
Multnomah. She's the DA from Multnomah, right? Working closely with law enforcement, right? Knows the streets, drinks the water. Lived in Vermont for a couple of years and worked in Vermont. She's been dancing. What is it called? Strolling to her own drum, whatever it's called. Beat of her own drum for a long, long time. She's not your typical federal judge. She's tough as nails. She doesn't give a crap about Donald Trump and Stephen Miller calling her an insurrectionist and calling her a terrorist. I guess they want to hang her from the highest tree. She doesn't care about any of that. She issued her first injunction on Saturday at 4:30 p.m., in which she said, no, the grounds under 10 U.S.C. section 12406 are not present. You can't federalize the National Guard. State sovereignty is at risk. Martial law. You're moving us towards martial law. Our founding fathers and framers would not like this. And I say, no. Donald Trump takes an appeal. That's what's up on appeal at the Ninth Circuit. He then says, F her. I mean, he probably said it literally in the halls of the White House, but not in writing. He said, instead he ordered that, he had Pete Hegseth order that the California National Guard, which had only been federalized and mobilized for things related to California, send them on the road. Like they're, like it's an arena tour for a rock band. Let's send them to Oregon and send Texas National Guard. And all of that. And she was like, let's have a hearing, emergency hearing. And why is this not? Because we had Rob Bonta, the attorney general from California, on the night of that hearing. That's how much he wanted to talk to our Legal AF audience. And she said, according to Rob, who was in the hearing, tell me how this is not a violation of my order from Saturday. I said, well, you only ordered an Oregon National Guard. She said, you understood the spirit of my order. Okay, let me make it more clear. I'm issuing a new temporary restraining order. You are not to deploy any National Guard in Portland, Oregon. You're not to deploy them. I don't care where they are right now. Send them back to their bases and their units, and they stay there. So that hasn't been appealed. Now, why that matters is when the three judges set the oral argument, and it's Graber, Nelson, and Bade. Graber, Clinton, Nelson, Trump, Bade, Trump. I mean, most of their decisions, Nelson and Bade, have not been good and have been very pro-Trump, even though they were in the first wave of the first Trump administration. I've spoken to people on Legal AF, contributors like Lisa Graves, who's very involved with, corruption and voting and judges related to federal courts. And she was like, yeah, they're both not good. They're not good for this. Graber's Clinton, sort of down the road. But they issued an order as we went on the air, and here's what they decided to do. I'll read you the highlights of it, Karen. They decided that they were going to grant the administrative stay, meaning they were going to allow Donald Trump to federalize the Oregon National Guard, but not deploy them. So for now, until they make the final ruling after the hearing tomorrow. And what they said, their logic, for lack of a better term, was that since only one of the two temporary restraining orders were up in front of them on appeal, the original one, which was the federalization, and the deployment has been currently blocked by the second, which is not up on appeal, we'll thread the needle. We'll say administrative stay for as long as we need on the federalization, the commandeering of the National Guard troops, but you don't get to mobilize them. So it's like you get to hold the ice cream cone, Donald Trump, but you don't get to lick it. So we're going to see what happens at the hearing. We'll know better. You're laughing at that. We'll know better from the oral argument. It's up on Legal AF YouTube right now. You can set a reminder. It's going to be at about noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to run the live feed. It'll be audio only. We'll be there for commentary. And this is what, let me just see if there's anything more interesting in the order, which we will post on Legal AF Substack. This is what they say on page 3 and 4, Karen. In the circumstances here, granting an administrative stay, a short, timey stay, will best preserve the status quo. The status quo being he already nationalized them. Prior to the October 4 Saturday temporary restraining order, the Oregon National Guard members had been federalized but not deployed. And an administrative stay will maintain the federalization of the members because that order prohibited the implementation of the order. But the second temporary restraining order has not been challenged or appealed, and it prohibits the deployment of the National Guard. Thus, in granting the administrative stay, they're very cute here, aren't they? It preserves the status quo in which the National Guard members have been federalized but not deployed. Administrative stay granted. We'll see everybody 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's just, and you and I are going to know really quickly about who takes the lead and the type of question, because we knew when a completely different Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals panel ruled against the decision of a federal trial judge then in Judge Breyer, Charles Breyer, who ruled that again also 12406 had been violated and Donald Trump couldn't federalize the California National Guard under those unique facts. And then another 3-judge panel was like, nah, we're going to let them federalize. There's enough. But at least there were rocks being thrown and a couple of cars burning. You know, it wasn't frog and chicken suits, right, Karen?
Yeah, look, I mean, honestly, if they are allowed to federalize and deploy it, if I were there, I'd just say, you know what, don't protest. Just let them, don't give them what they want. Don't give them an opportunity to make chaos and because they're going to tear gas people. They're going to you've seen people thrown to the ground. You've seen people really handled poorly. And then it creates this video of, oh, look what's here. I mean, ignore them, let them guard their federal buildings because that's all they're really allowed to do, right? Let them guard the federal buildings and go about your life. Like it's a joke. It's a total joke. So don't let them, if they are forced to be allowed to have them there, that would be my tactic because they can't really do much, right? That's not what they're supposed to do. And of course, if they think they're being attacked, then they're going to just draw, they're going to put out those videos and use those things to justify their existence. I would, see if we could just ignore them because it's just not worth it, right? It's not worth it if all they're doing is guarding the buildings because that's really all they're really allowed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what Oregon's Attorney General said, last paragraph of his filing to the Ninth Circuit. He says, the broader public interest supports the district court's order. The traditional and strong resistance of Americans to a military intrusion into civilian affairs has deep roots in our history, citing the same case that the judge had cited. As discussed above, defendants have exceeded the scope of their statutory authority and they're acting contrary to the constitutional federal state balance. Defendants' nearly limitless conception of the statute about commandeering the National Guard will give the president discretion to repeat this experiment in response to other ordinary nonviolent acts of civil disobedience across our nation. The public interest is served by a judicial order preserving the rule of law in the face of unprecedented and unlawful executive action that threatens grave and irreparable damage to our state and the nation. That's what's at stake, putting aside all the all the guffawing I was doing about chicken suits. That is what is at stake. I mean, there's a reason Judge Immergut cited to James Madison at the first, constitutional convention about the problem with having a standing army being used by a quote unquote overgrown president. It's great when you're fighting the foreign enemy outside, but that same standing army could be used for tyranny quickly when used by an overgrown president. It isn't, you can call Donald Trump many things, but overgrown president, I think, perfectly spots it, as James Madison said. Karen, I was going to move on to Pam Bondi. What do you think about that?
Talk about it.
Yeah, let's do. We'll split Bondi in half. I don't mean literally, although we'll talk about some of Bondi now, and then we'll pick up with Bondi after another commercial break later, and then what happened at the United States Supreme Court. So Pam Bondi gets called in to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and
which is routine and normal and is done all the time.
Yeah. This is the same group that confirmed her. This is the same group that she swore that as she got sworn in, that she swore would be independent, that she would not take direction from Donald Trump, like social media posts that say, Pam, you're running out of time. Indict all my people that I want indicted, or whatever he wrote, and which she did. And now, though, we got a whole new version of Pam Bondi. You could tell the strain of The Office is wearing on her. I've said that we're watching the incredible shrinking Donald Trump, because he's just shrinking before our very eyes. Everything he does where he thinks he looks like a strong, tough guy and all that, the public is rejecting him and Trumpism, and he's about 3.5. He's like that guy that's 4.5 foot tall and he wants to be a starter on the NBA as a center. He just doesn't realize he's tiny. He's a tiny, tiny little man, and we're all seeing it. And you see her, one way to interpret her body language and her fighting and her, as I said during my podcast yesterday, this clutching at pearls, and she almost reached for a fan at one point. Oh, I do declare you're attacking my ethics. I'm like, sit down, Pam. Yeah. We're talking about your Department of Justice, which Dick Durbin called effectively the most corrupt Department of Justice we've ever seen, that you presided over. And there was several key moments in that, about, things that are in the press, like the Tom Homan bribery video. It's hard to believe there's that face again. We should use that and put that in our library and constantly use that for Pam Bondi. There's a video. Democracy Forward, who works with us on Legal AF, just filed a lawsuit to get the video finally. There's a video. But she decides, no, I'm going to tangle with Sheldon Whitehouse, because Sheldon Whitehouse might have known Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn at some point, and maybe that's connected to Epstein. It's just the sheer madness of it all. Let's play that clip.
Senator, as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review by the FBI, agents, and DOJ prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing.
And that was not my question. My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts.
Are you saying that they did not deliver $50,000 in cash to Mr. Homan?
Senator, as recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review
different question.
By the FBI agents,
That's a
by
different
Department
question.
of Justice prosecutors. They found no evidence of wrongdoing.
That's a different question. What became of the $50,000? Did the FBI get it back?
Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to talk to the FBI.
The report to you, can't you answer this question?
Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to discuss this with Director Patel.
Did Homan keep the $50,000?
As Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr.
Never mind.
Homan
I can see I'm not going to get a straight answer from you to a very simple question.
By the FBI agents and the DOJ. They found no credible evidence of wrongdoing. You're very concerned about money and people taking money, and you rail against dark money.
Wait a second.
You work with dark money groups all the time, Senator Whitehouse.
Did you know?
It's all about the whataboutism. What about that time that you stood with Casa Incorporated? She accused one of the senators. They know Antifa. I'm not accusing you of being Antifa. Somebody thought this was an effective strategy for responding to U.S. senators providing their oversight duties. How do you think it went, Karen?
I mean, I was appalled. You should be able to answer basic questions, but she had some pre-written answers that she was going to give no matter what the questions were. And that's all she gave. But she was totally evasive and did not provide. Look, the Senate has an oversight function. That is what they do. They have, and the Judiciary Committee has always had, whether it's director of the FBI or the head of the Attorney General, whoever it is, they have them to come in for hearings. And these are basic questions, right? $50,000 was given as bait, right? This was a sting operation by the FBI with Tom Homan. So these are marked bills. When you use bills as bait, you literally you keep track of the serial numbers because you want to see if you get the same, if you recover the exact same ones. You put them in a bag. But they're real dollars, and you put them in a bag, and you go and you do your sting operation, which they filmed or audio taped. I've heard both. And they go in and they record it. But these are pros. They rehearse it ahead of time. What are you going to say? What are the elements of bribery? Let's make sure that we use the proper words. And they go in and they did the things that they were supposed to do. Money was exchanged. Homan accepted the bag of money. And I think it's a fair question to know, where are those dollars that the FBI provided, right? Did the FBI get it back? Did it go back into the FBI coffers? Is it taxpayer dollars? I mean, where is that money? It's a fair question. And she went on later saying that, that investigation was closed before I was confirmed. And so therefore she knows nothing about it. I mean, that is absurd. Right? That is appalling. This wasn't something that happened 20 years ago. This happened like the day before she was confirmed, or the week before she was. This was very recent. And so the fact that I actually don't believe that she doesn't know more about it. And if she doesn't know more about it, I think it's actually she's not doing her job, and she's not a very good attorney general. She should know exactly the facts of the most important cases that have been going on and that have been investigated, open or closed, and that are of public interest and that are important since Trump took office only a few months ago, right? It's not like he's been in office for 4 years and she's a new attorney general, and this was 3.5 years ago, and so she doesn't know. It's only been in office for 8 months, and haven't been that many huge investigations. She should know all of the details, all of the facts, and I think she's just stonewalling the Senate, and I don't think that's right. I think that the American people have a right to know that the Senate is doing their job of checks and balances, right? This is what the legislative branch is supposed to do if they're doing their job and their oversight over the executive branch. And she wasn't answering, and she was frankly obstructing their answers.
Yeah, we got more of Pam Bondi, not less. And it doesn't get any better when she starts fielding some questions from what's supposed to be softballs from senators like Kennedy, not that one, the MAGA Republican one. We will cover that. Where am I going with that? We will cover that and the opening of the United States Supreme Court's 25-26 term. We're already exhausted by the emergency shadow docket, but yes, the term is open for the regular appeals. And to answer the question that's come up in the chat before, that does not stop the emergency docket. That goes on parallel with this. So it's 70 cases or so that'll be taken up at the Supreme Court, and then another 1,000 that will be emergency docket applications that you and Karen and I and Ben will have to cover. But let's talk about this ecosystem again. Great news. As I came on the air, our producer told us that, and this is all a testament to the fervent support of our audience that we adore. Legal AF, the podcast on YouTube rankings for this week, is now at, wait for it, number 25. And I'm talking like all genres. Like we're up against like Who's Your Daddy and other podcasts you may or may not have heard of. It's not like news, and like we would number one Law and Politics, no doubt. Because if we're 25 with that august body, the Midas Brothers are number 2. And then there's a little podcast called The Intersection with Michael Popok that's number 96 that came into the top 100 again this week. But it's working. The hummingbird thing is working. You're watching us here on YouTube. You're letting your friends know about us. You're going over to the audio version on Apple and Spotify, leaving 5-star reviews and listening over there. Coming over to Legal AF, the Substack, the YouTube Legal AF YouTube. Sorry, it's been a long day. And subscribing there. That's why we just crossed 270 million views of all the work that we have there. And we can bring on like Rob Bonta, Attorney General, California last minute. And, all the alumni from the Department of Justice are now coming over to Legal AF to do a regular playlist along with Democracy Forward and their 90 cases at ACLU. I mean, we want to be under one roof, one-stop shopping for law and politics. And we're rapidly becoming that because of you. Then we got the Legal AF Substack. And some people, I had a friend of mine write me recently. It was very sweet. The text was, how do I want to make an investment. I want to invest in Legal AF. And she meant like literally like stroking a check. And I was like, I love that. I love what that demonstrates or indicates about you and your commitment. But no, we don't do that. But there is a way to kind of have a piece of the rock and be a full-fledged card-carrying member of Legal AF. Come over to Legal AF, the Substack, where we're doing live reportings and 10 different postings a day. And you can become a paid member. It's relatively inexpensive. It's like $7 a month, not a week. And I assure you, I'm focused on the quality of the content there. So it far surpasses that price. And then we've got our sponsors. And here's another word from our sponsors. If you notice more hair in your brush lately, you're not imagining it. Seasonal shedding and breakage really pick up when the weather turns cooler and drier. I've seen it myself. But OneSkin's OS1 hair can help. This is a scalp serum powered by their patented OS1 peptide, and it works by targeting the cells in your hair follicles that contribute to shedding, thinning, and slower hair growth. OS1 hair can actually reactivate the hair growth cycle and promote thicker, fuller, and denser hair. The clinical studies behind it are impressive. After 6 months, people saw a 43% increase in hair thickness and a 40% increase in hair density, along with less shedding and more fullness. The science is real, and people are seeing results. Born from over 10 years of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the cells that cause the visible signs of aging, so your scalp and your hair stay healthy now and as you age. Go to oneskin.co/hair. That's oneskin.co/hair and use code LegalAF for 15% off your first order. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please tell them we sent you. That's oneskin.co/hair and use code LegalAF for 15% off. In this crazy upside-down world that we're working to make sense of, I have no better judge of character than my lab border collie, Lily. And having given her her forever home, we take pride in making sure that we feed her healthy, fresh dog food while making sure we don't break our back or the bank doing so. And my family is thrilled to have found Sundays for Lily, having tried other freezer box brands, and we noticed the improved health of our dog almost right away. First, she loves the flavor. And we love what it's done to her coat, eyes, and breath. And with her weight management, so much easier to manage her weight with a scoop of Sundays than any other product we tried. And this product is super easy for us to store and serve. It doesn't require refrigeration or the delivery of dozens of pounds of ice packs. Sundays is fresh dog food made from a short list of human-grade ingredients. Sundays contains 100% all-natural meat and superfoods and 0% synthetic nutrients or artificial ingredients. Dog parents report noticeable health improvements in their pups, including softer fur, fresher breath, better poops, and more energy after switching to Sundays. Unlike other fresh dog food, Sundays does not require refrigeration or preparation because of their air drying process. Just pour and serve. Cancel or pause your subscription anytime with their 14-day money-back guarantee. Every order ships right to your door, so you'll never worry about running out of dog food again. And did I mention how easy and convenient it is to store the bags? Insert big white smile here. Get 40% off your first order of Sundays. Go to sundaysfordogs.com/LegalAF or use code LegalAF at checkout. Welcome back to Legal AF. the leading law and politics podcast, according to the YouTube rankings. I love saying something like that. Let's continue with Pam Bondi, not because we want to, but because we have to. It's like a train wreck. You can't look at it. You can't look away. Whenever she is so incompetent, obscenely unqualified for that job. Say what you want about Merrick Garland. He was a little bit slow on the trigger. He was, he's not moving fast enough. But he was at least an adult. He at least had gravitas. We felt like we may not agree with the direction of every aspect of the Department of Justice, but he didn't preside over the destruction of the Civil Rights Division, the Public Integrity Unit, everything about counterintelligence. He didn't fire 5,000 people, the best and the brightest that you could never get back. It's hard to believe we're looking back at the halcyon days, the golden era of Merrick Garland. I said she was going to be this bad, and we all said it. And now it's on full display. So she gets the point, Karen, just to set the stage, where maybe she wasn't ready. It was one of these softballs that bounced off her forehead. Because I don't think Kennedy thought this was going to be a difficult line of questions. Epstein's back, right? And the problem is that somebody I used to work with, named Howard Lutnik, back in the day, decided to go on and give an interview on a podcast. Who in their right mind goes on a podcast? But he decided, and the one he wanted to go on was Pod Force One. That's owned by Rupert Murdoch and the New York Post. I'm like, what could go wrong? So he starts admitting things that, frankly, not that I would ever know it anyway, but I hadn't even heard in the media, which is not only did he live next door, as we knew, and bought the house from Jeffrey Epstein, and they shared a wall because they had adjoining townhouses, but he went into the house in 2005, saw the massage table with his wife, Allison, I'm talking about Howard, and was creeped out by what was suspected wrongdoing, and then didn't say anything about it. This is a guy who had children living next door. He saw, it's like you live next door to a serial killer and you see the hitchhikers going in but not coming out, and you don't call the authorities. So that's a problem. Then he all of a sudden turns in the interview, and I have it up in a video on Legal AF YouTube. He turns in the interview to start talking about, everybody that knew Epstein was a participant in Bill Gates. He said Bill Gates, Donald Trump. I mean, he didn't say Donald Trump. So everybody that knew Jeffrey Epstein, who was his best friend and was socialized with, participated in all the depraved child sex trafficking. Is that what you're trying to say? And then he turns to Jeffrey Epstein was the greatest blackmailer of all time. And then continues, Karen, and says, he is sure that, because he's a broker in his mind, there was a trade. He probably traded the videos of important people, like his boss, having sex with raping girls with the prosecutors in Miami to get that sweetheart deal of 17 months. How did he get that deal, Howard speculated? Well, that is completely counter to the FBI's position. Kash Patel swore under oath that there's nobody else involved. The only one that was child sex trafficked, it was only to Jeffrey Epstein, or I would prosecute it. That's not what Howard Lutnik says. So, and you've done prosecution related to this type of thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I wanted to ask him so many questions of that interview, right? He was saying, he's the greatest blackmailer of all time. Really? How do you know that? Because you just said after that one time that you went in there with your wife and was creeped out, you never talked to him again and never saw him again. So either you saw something or people told you, right? What was going on? He had very specific information that I would love to know more of. Where did he get that? And how did he know that? And why didn't he say anything about it, as you said?
You might get your chance, because here's a clip of Senator Kennedy asking very similar questions as my podcast partner and friend Karen Friedman Agnifilo to one Pamela Jo Bondi. Roll it.
Secretary Howard Lutnik on October 1 gave an interview to the New York Post about Mr. Epstein. And he described Mr. Epstein as, quote, the greatest blackmailer ever, close quote. Have you reviewed that transcript of that interview?
I have not reviewed the transcript, but I saw the clip of it.
Okay. It appears that Secretary Lutnik was Mr. Epstein's next door neighbor. In fact, their townhomes shared a wall. And the reporter that was talking to Mr. Lutnik, she asked how other prominent men could have been associated with Epstein when Mr. Lutnik could immediately sense that he was a, quote, pervert. And then Secretary Lutnik said, or rather the reporter said, did they see it and ignore it? Do you remember that from the interview?
I do.
And Commerce Secretary Lutnik said, no, they participated. And then Commerce Secretary Lutnik goes on to say, quote, that's what his MO was. You know, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was a video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever, blackmailed people. That's how he had money, end quote. Is that true?
Senator, as our July memo said, we did not uncover evidence. This case has gone through 3 administrations, as well as former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta.
I know that, Pam. But have you interviewed Secretary Lutnik?
No, Senator.
Do you plan to?
If he wants to talk to the FBI or the FBI wants to talk to him, that is more than on.
Don't you think you ought to talk to him after this interview?
Senator, if Howard Lutnik wants to speak to the FBI and if Director Patel wants to speak to Howard Lutnik, absolutely.
Okay. Maybe we ought to get Mr. Lutnik in here too, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe we ought to get Mr. Lutnik in here too, Mr. Chairman. That is not what Pam Bondi wanted to hear. But this is an administration that operates with impunity and has a tone deafness about them, that they're in some rarefied world, that they're untouchable because their fearless leader is. If you were to piece together, but they don't have immunity. He does. They might have future pardons in their back pocket, but they don't have immunity. See, Howard obviously was trying to spin the narrative about how he lived next door to what would have been a convicted child sex trafficker for so many years and threw in something nobody else knew about. The guy is dead. Nobody knew about the visit between Howard, Alice, and his wife and Epstein, but Howard. But Howard had to keep talking away there. I was in the house. I saw the massage table. Well, if everybody that knew Epstein participated, like Bill Gates, then why not Donald Trump? So he threw Trump under the bus. He destroyed Kash Patel's under oath statement that they found no credible evidence of anybody being involved other than Jeffrey Epstein. And I think Kennedy did his job, whether he wanted to or not. And Bondi was left looking like a complete and utter nincompoop. What did you think, Karen?
I mean, the crazy thing about that hearing and about Pam Bondi is if she had evidence that absolved or exonerated people like Donald Trump, she would be presenting it, she'd be waving it, she'd be having it on big poster boards. But instead she says, oh, I'm just not going to answer those questions. I'm not going to tell you whether or not we have this, or I didn't see the file, or I don't know anything. And so all of the different things that she was asked, that she was completely evasive, like the $50,000 for Tom Homan in the bribe, or all of the Epstein questions about was there a picture with Trump, was, all the different things that they were asking about Levitt, about all the specifics that she just kept deflecting and refusing to answer, and instead attacking them and saying things like Tom Homan is I forgot what she called him, but she went on about how great he is and how he's protecting our borders and, how he's this loyal, upstanding American. If she had evidence that he didn't do it, you'd be damn. I would give you any amount of money. I would bet that she would absolutely be waving that exonerating evidence at the hearing to exonerate all of those people, including Donald Trump, when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. So the fact that she was deflecting, refusing to answer, giving these canned answers, and then saying things like, "Oh no, you're the one taking dark money," or "You owe Donald Trump an apology for defaming him," doing that kind of stuff. It doesn't help her, and it certainly doesn't help Trump or any of the other individuals. It just makes them look more guilty, because she is the one who, no one believes she hasn't looked in these files. No one believes that she hasn't seen all of the evidence, that she hasn't seen everything that's in all of those files. She's not incompetent in that regard. Of course she knows what's in there. And so the fact that she isn't saying that it's not, that they're innocent and that there's evidence of innocence in there, I would read into that in a big way, because that to me is more telling. She is the person in the know. And so that I just thought it looked so terrible on the administration, her testimony, and I think it really backfired.
I agree with you. And she said, well, Secretary Lutnik wants to talk to the FBI. The FBI wants to, what are you effing talking about? Even Kennedy was like, maybe we need to bring Lutnik in and put him under oath. How about that?
Exactly.
And again, the Epstein stain, the stench of the Epstein cover-up scandal continues to follow this administration around, because Donald Trump refuses to level with the American people about his relationship, about their financial ties, if there were any, and to release the files because there are embarrassing things in it. If there were nothing in there about him that was embarrassing, they'd already be out. It'd be published in a book by Heritage Foundation Press, right? They'd be doing a rally about it. But no, so we have to conclude, just like we would in court. Look, if a party fails to produce documents or information or spoliates them, destroys them, a judge and a jury can conclude through an adverse inference that the documents that are missing are not helpful and are harmful to the position of the party that's withholding the documents. Okay, nation, Trump is withholding the documents. We can therefore make an adverse inference that they're not helpful, they're harmful, and that's so. Let's move on. But no, I'd also like to see the Epstein files. So the Supreme Court opened for business, and 2 oral arguments already in the books. One involving conversion therapy. Why is it always? It's always Christians that are trying to not bake a cake or not build a wedding website for gays, or wanting to do therapy that it's documented by the medical and psychological professions is harmful to people, to try to change them back, have them stop being gay or whatever it is, or transgender. And the fight was over his First Amendment speech, that the patient has the right to hear the conversion therapy, and the Christian therapist has the right to offer their opinions and open up the hood of the person's mind and monkey around in there and make it worse. And the question is that true or not? Is that right or not? What was your takeaway from the majority MAGA 6 and how they handled that oral argument?
Yeah. So look, this came about as a therapist in Colorado who, this hadn't happened to her yet, but theoretically, if she wanted to do this conversion therapy, or this pray away the gay therapy, as I like to call it, that there's a law in Colorado, like in 20 other states, that says you're not allowed to do this conversion therapy, that it's actually harmful. And the MAGA majority justices basically are reviewing this from a First Amendment standpoint. They're saying, no, that law banning this conversion therapy is infringing on the First Amendment freedom of religion rights and speech rights of this therapist and the patients who she claims, and by the way, this law only applies to minors. So it's really the parents who would have to consent to this on behalf of their kids. And, so if it's a First Amendment, if this is a First Amendment right, and that's the analysis they were trying to adopt here, then then any law that infringes upon a First Amendment right has to go through the highest level of strict scrutiny. Strict scrutiny. It's a very high standard, and that's where I think if they adopt that standard, they're going to say, potentially, I think they're going to rule that the law is unconstitutional. But what really bothered me about this is how is this First Amendment, right? This isn't, I just don't see this as a First Amendment issue. This is medical treatment, right? This is not speech. No one's saying she can't go out and speak openly about her religion and her beliefs and that she's anti-gay. It's a matter of her administering a medical procedure. And mental health therapy is medical. It is a medical procedure that you are giving to somebody. And it made me think to myself, it's interesting how they want to give her a First Amendment right, or therapists a First Amendment right to be able to try and do this, what has been proven to be a harmful medical procedure on somebody, but yet they won't then for transgender care, when a doctor and a patient make a decision that they want to take drugs or have surgery to change their body, right? Children who want to do that and who make that very difficult decision to undergo that, but it is a decision that is not protected, right? No, we're going to regulate that. That's a harmful medical procedure. To me, this is no different and should be treated the same. And the fact that they're going to say, oh, no, you can do this harmful thing. Like, you can't have it both ways. But so it's clear to me what's happening is, look, this is the separation of church and state no longer exists. And the Supreme Court, the MAGA right, is you bringing their religious views into, and their conservative MAGA religious views into the court, and they are going to make legal arguments to fit what their ideological viewpoint is, because it is inconsistent, in my view, to apply one standard for one and one for another. I mean, therapy isn't speech, it's treatment. It's a medical treatment. And so, but I think, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that there's a chance that she wins, and that the rights of LGBTQ people are really, really put back. And it's really harmful. There's been studies that talk about how this conversion therapy can be very harmful and create, can actually be worse, right? For people who then could want to consider suicide or other really harmful acts, because you're being told that who you are, there's something wrong with you. And it's really sad. This case makes me sad.
Yeah. And there's a MAGA majority to find on First Amendment grounds that conversion therapy bans in 22 states, including Colorado, violate the First Amendment under strict scrutiny. And I think that's what the ruling's going to be, just managing expectations here as we roll into the second case, which was a case on its face. The merits of the case is about whether states like Illinois and other places can extend the time for a postmarked ballot, postmarked on the day of the election, but received up to 12 or 14 days later, because the mail sucks, especially overseas mail, is unconstitutional or not. Does it fundamentally have a state through its rules change the essence of the election and the day of the election, which is set by Constitution? I mean, Donald Trump wants an election day. He doesn't want early voting. He doesn't want mail-in voting. He does, except when he was using it himself back in the day, absentee voting, all the things that he sees as an advantage to the Democrats. He wants good old-fashioned stand in line, like, back in the day. Because like when I first started voting, and you too, Karen, there wasn't early voting. There was mail-in, there was absentee, and there was mail-in. It was strict. But you had to go down to the firehouse and stand in line. You got to a giant, okay, kids, gather around. It's going to be a history lesson. You went to this giant gray metal cabinet from like the 1960s or 50s that it was mechanical, not electronic. You went in, they closed the curtain. You switched the switch, they closed the curtain, and you went down with levers on a paper ballot that was thread through the back of the machine, and you hit your switches. Then there was one big giant switch. You sure you're ready to vote? At the top, yes. And then that ballot got dumped into the bottom of this giant machine and locked away until they collected all the ballots. That was voting. And Donald Trump wants to go back to a version of that because Democrats always have an advantage of getting souls to the polls and getting ballots and all that. So that's the merits, but that's not what was on full display in the oral argument. Because this was a procedural question as to whether a candidate who didn't lose by a little but lost by a lot could still have standing, the legal right to challenge who has the right, I guess is the better way to put it, and who can bring a lawsuit to challenge things like a state's election laws, which they're allowed to do by federal constitution, about whether it conflicts with another aspect of the Constitution or not. Who is the injured party? And you had a couple of people who challenged, MAGA Trumpers, but they didn't suffer any harm on the mail-in ballot problem because they didn't lose by the difference of the mail-in ballots. And Paul Clement, who's kind of come out and helped a lot of targets of Donald Trump as a former Solicitor General for George Bush, he was on the side of these people. He tried to frame it as the campaign continuing for an additional 12 days. The postmark has to be the day of the election. It has to be in the bag. You're not campaigning to change the hearts and minds of people waiting for their votes to come in. They should have already voted. But what was your impression of how that's going to go down with the MAGA 6?
I mean, I think first of all, I think that's a weird argument, because as the circuit below said, look, that was your choice to keep campaigning 2 weeks afterward. No one said you had to do that. As you said, it had to be postmarked by the day. I mean, look, there's some interesting questions because on the one hand, you don't want to make the rules harder for bringing election law challenges. But on the other hand, if it make it too easy, you'll flood the courts with a gazillion lawsuits and you'll never have results of any election. So, it's a tricky case. The whole thing about mail-in ballots, I mean, that's just going to impact so many people who are in the military, who are overseas. It's going to impact so many people. But this is just the fight continues on, this is all about Donald Trump's crazy assertion that the election was stolen and he's so anti-mail-in ballots. So we'll see. We'll see whether whether MAGA is going to whether the MAGA right Supreme Court majority, which is really what they are at this point, what they're going to do and whether they're going to continue to do Trump's bidding or not. But I could see them here. I think the argument that having too many lawsuits and never having elections be finalized, I could see that carrying the day ultimately because,
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll
I'm
see.
I'm not as trusting as you are. I think they're going to widen the net of who has standing to bring these types of lawsuits, and they're going to loosen up the reins of injury and not require that a person show that the election outcome for their election would have been different based on the mail-in ballot or whatever election rule that we're talking about. I think there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to instruct federal courts below them to loosen up the ropes about standing, even though standing is the most fundamental thing. You see, we've talked about this before, right, Karen, with our audience. When the administration, it's all reverse engineering. When they don't want to reach something that would be helpful to like the liberal side or the Democratic side, they say, well, we'd love to help you, but this case we have to dismiss because there's no standing for the people that have brought it. Sorry, it's a nice case. Probably would have helped a lot of people in America, but you don't have standing. And then you got to go scramble to go find somebody who does have standing. But here they're like, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that could be, that's what they should say to the therapist in Colorado.
Yes.
Right. There's no case in controversy there. She wasn't, it wasn't like she was disciplined for providing this therapy. I mean,
how about the website designer? She didn't even have a company.
Exactly.
It was a fictitious company that she didn't even have up and running. She never designed a website in her life.
Yeah. So they bend the rules when.
Yes, they make them up. And when they can't find one in the toolbox, like when you're in your garage or whatever, and you're looking for something, you're like, God damn it, I wish I had that. They just make it up. They're like, oh, I wish there was a rule that who could create that? Right, we can. That, like, when you're too close to an election, you can't. Okay, the Purcell Doctrine. People are like, that must have sprung from the head of our framers at the Constitutional Convention. Like, no. Originalism, textualism, right? Oh, we must divine the meaning of what our framers said. Oh, that must have been part of the Constitution, right? No, it's made up bullshit that didn't even take root until the 1980s with people like Robert Bork, carried forward by Alito until they got enough MAGA 6 to get a majority. It's all made up shit. That's why people have no confidence in the United States Supreme Court. And then as we've talked about in the shadow docket, they don't even bother explaining themselves anymore. They've reached the point where they're just like, just take our word for it. This is the ruling. What is it based on? We're not going to tell you. Where's the logic? Well, that's for another day. Where's the analysis? Where's the precedent being used? Well, that's just getting in the way. As the Sam Alito once said during an oral argument, let's not get bogged down in the facts of this case. I was like, what are you just admitting out loud that you don't even care to be in appellate court anymore? You're just issuing advisory opinions that try to bind us. I mean, the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, all kidding aside, is a serious matter, which is why the next administration, hopefully with a big D next to its name, needs to address it. We need Supreme Court reform. There is no, and federal court reform. There is no doubt in my mind now that in order to avoid a future Trump or a series of Trumps, we have to, whenever we grab the reins of power, we're going to have to pack the court, to quote, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We need 15 seats. We need to add 6 more to balance this out and get a 9-6 majority of free-thinking people. And then, you know what? Give me and you a shot. We've had generations, 3 generations of complete Republican control of the United States Supreme Court. The presidency, sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. The full House, the Senate. We haven't had the Supreme Court led by Democrats in like 75 years. Give us a shot, folks. Let's pack the court. Let's get 15 or more on there, and let's return civility to American life. What do you say?
I mean, it would be nice to just have also judges who just actually interpret the law. Like, it's just
you cockeyed optimist, Karen. You're not happening in this world. We just got to play by the new rules and beat them at their own game. I mean, to use a sports metaphor, Florida teams are winning the Stanley Cup. Who would have thought ice hockey in Florida? All right, we've been given the rules. We got to beat them at their own game. Yes, keep our ethics, keep our morality, but stop with the niceties and stop with the. I'd like to even see sharper questioning in the Supreme Court. I'd like to see a better job being done by the legal counsel that supply a lot of the cross-examination questions to the senators and the Congress people. I mean, some of them are former prosecutors, so they know what they're doing. But I could have seen a stronger cross-examination. And the problem with even the senators, Karen, is that they're so sort of suffused in the traditions of the Senate and all that even when they get a lying sack of like Pam Bondi in front of them, they can't switch gears quick enough. Like you and I in court, you and I'll come in with our rough outline of how we'd like to do a witness or handle a certain legal issue. And then in the fog of war, it all gets lost, and you've got to quickly pivot. You got to throw away your outline, take your legal pad. I once had a case, Karen, where in the middle of my opening in front of a jury, the judge stopped me, called us all up to the podium and said, you can't make the defense that you're making. I said, excuse me? They said, no, I'm going to make a ruling now. I'm going to grant this other motion that have been floating around for years, and you now have to redo your entire opening statement. I'll give you 2 hours at a lunch break. So I'm there on a yellow pad in a diner in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, like pages were like flying in the air. It was like a Tasmanian devil. But I pulled it together and I gave an effing opening and we won the case. And I want to see a little bit more of that when the Senate and the House get their mitts and their grips into cabinet members like RFK Jr. and Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi. We better be learning from what's going on in these rooms just as they are.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. But what we've seen so far is all the administration, all they do is obstruct. They do not answer questions. So no matter how good the questions are, no matter how strong and sharp they are, the administration just refuses to comply and refuses to participate and just deflects. And I think we hold it against them, and if I was one of the senators, I would say, so I would basically say, so if you had evidence that this did not happen, I assume you would bring it here, right? And, she'll have to answer that, right? I assume if there's no evidence of Donald Trump in the Epstein files, you would tell us, right? I mean, you have to bait her into answering some questions. And I agree with you. They have to get better at it, but they have to figure out a way to get the questions answered. They just do.
And I think, a lot of them are fans of Legal AF. Sheldon Whitehouse is going to be on Legal AF tomorrow, being interviewed by Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News with us here on Legal AF. And, we've had a number of these people on, and Jamie Raskin's been on with us on Legal AF. And that is... I
hope Adam doesn't say, Popok thinks you should ask better questions.
No, but I did write a note to Adam that said that I was disappointed. I want him to tell Senator Whitehouse that I was disappointed when he asked the questions about the photographs that were in Epstein's house of Donald Trump with girls on his lap, that they didn't also use the Legal AF video that Jamie Raskin and Ted Lieu used 2 weeks earlier in the House. Like, oh, here's our moment. Legal AF's going to be back in the hearing room. No. So no, that was, no, Adam will do a great job. And Sheldon's a friend of Legal AF. He's very close. People may not know this, but one of the great contributors on Legal AF is Court Accountability Action, led by Alex Aronson and Lisa Graves. Lisa Graves has a beautiful new book out. She's been sounding the alarm about John Roberts for like 30 years and finally wrote a book called Without Precedent about John Roberts being a Trojan horse and what he's doing to destroy America. It's a beautiful book. It's required reading for Legal AFers. That she's with Court Accountability Action. But Alex Aronson was Sheldon Whitehouse's chief legal counsel on Capitol Hill. And they have a very close relationship, and he's often with us over on Legal AF as well, as we're trying to bring newsmakers and the lawyers that are in the courtroom all together in one place, in one ecosystem. Kara, we're at the end. What do you got? What do you got for the audience?
Tonight's episode makes me want to go have a glass of Willamette Valley Pinot Noir, because I'm just thinking back to my times in Oregon, and there's just no better wine than from the Willamette Valley. So
I saw I was going to say earlier, I'm wearing blue, you're wearing red, but it's more like wine. So maybe it's more red where you are. But if you're around next a week from Saturday, I'm going to be in San Diego doing a live Legal AF hot take interview of Rob Bonta, the Attorney General, on the stage at a thing called Mardi Gras, which is a bunch of lawyers getting together, and he's one of the keynotes, and I'm going to be doing an interview of him. But the next day, there's a podcast called Bourbon of Proof. Do you drink bourbon?
I do not.
Okay. Bourbon of Proof. It's run by a lawyer named Robert Simon, and we're going to do a crossover episode. Bourbon of Proof meets Legal AF on a music stage where they're going to have DJs, house music DJs later in the day. I think it may end up being like Drunk Shakespeare. It could be like Drunk Legal AF.
I think it's really fun. I think it sounds fun.
Right. So look for that. Look for that starting next week. We're actually going to do the Rob Bonta interview, and we'll put it up soon as a live. So people kind of get used to us doing live feeds like that. And we're so pleased to have people like Rob Bonta coming on Legal AF and so supportive of everything that we do here, as I am of you and all of your great work. But we've reached the end of another episode of Legal AF, the number 25 ranked podcast on Legal AF on YouTube. Weekly rankings just out today, and that's all a testament to your support. We really do appreciate all of it. So shout out to the Meidas Mighty and the Legal AFers.